right, welcome back to Beyond the Court with League One Volleyball, where we deep dive with some of the top coaches and leaders in volleyball and beyond. I am your host, Courtney Thompson, and we all know that great coaches challenge their athletes to find their best in all areas of their game, while also helping to inspire and motivate them in ways that go far beyond the court. Today, we are very lucky to be joined by Tyler Hildebrandt. Tyler was an amazing setter at Long Beach State and the USA men's national team. He is someone that is deeply invested in the craft of coaching and has such a wide range of experience. He's been the assistant coach at Nebraska when they won a national championship. He has run his own program at Long Beach State. He was the head coach of USA Beach, where he coached several teams in the Olympics, including helping Alex and April win their gold medal in Tokyo. He's been an assistant with the indoor men's national team. He has coached club, and he is now the assistant head coach at USC. Tyler is someone who's incredibly passionate and lives with such intention. And Tyler, I'm so grateful to get to spend this hour with you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Court. This is unique maybe for us because you and I have known each other, it seems like forever. And I think the same about you and also everything that you touch. I've said it to you a million times. I'll say it here publicly. I'm done. I'm writing in ballot Courtney Thompson for president.
Oh my God.
Election.
Get out of here.
I know we joke about that, but I just, I'm such a big fan of Love and League One, and I was really fortunate to see Caitlin speak to a team.
Oh yeah, that's right.
At SC with one of our players' classes. And
Caitlin, are the CEO of League One Volleyball. Yep.
Every time I get a touch of League One, I'm so engaged with the mission. I think everyone wants these professional volleyball leagues to succeed and make money, and I have no doubt it will. But I care more about the mission and the reasons behind it. And every time I hear anyone has a big role in that company talk about it, it touches my heart and my values. And I'm like always saying, your role, which is a very big one in this process. I'm just like, well, I can't fail because Courtney's there.
Thank you.
I'm very, very grateful to be here, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel super grateful to get to be trying to make this great for so many athletes, and then obviously everyone that loves volleyball in our country and also in the world. But so I have to start with this story, Tyler, because I first saw you playing at Long Beach State, and I was in a dorm room. I think you were in the semis of the NCAA tournament. I was at the University of Washington, and you had a float serve and you bounced the ball during your approach. And I changed my whole serve at UW. And for my whole freshman year, I bounced the ball because you did it, and I thought it looked cool. And then Jim McLaughlin, my coach there, was like, dude, why are you doing that? Maybe we can upgrade. But yeah. I've known you then. Obviously, I'm best friends with your wife, and you and I have such a shared history. But for everyone, can you just kick us off by sharing a little bit of how you got to where you are in your career? You don't have to go into everything, but just kind of an overview.
I was very fortunate to have great parents and a great family. My dad played football and basketball in college, and so, but my mom was actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, you've met my dad. He's a
big guy.
Yeah. So my dad was my first teacher and my first coach. Ironically, my mom has just as much of an influence in some different ways. And my mom was actually a more coordinated athlete than my dad. So I got, I think, some of my touch and coordination from my mom. But my dad, was really my first teacher. And so I feel fortunate to have a leader and a teacher. So I started out doing that. And, I always look back and I always think about players I'm coaching of, where does confidence start? And is it that some kids have that late July birthday, so they get to be held back a year, and now they're just bigger and stronger than everyone. And I wasn't. I was a February, so I was a younger kid in my grade. But where do these confidence or belief or competitiveness come from? everything in life, nature versus nurture. And
Yeah.
so I'm actually recently just finally in my life trying to figure out that start for me. How much of it was innate in my desire to do these things or ability to do the sports, and how much of it was nurture from my family and the things I was doing. But I wanted to play basketball. With no offense to volleyball, it's still golf is my favorite sport. I think everyone that knows me knows that.
That's
But
correct.
basketball for sure is my first love. I played five sports in high school. My parents exposed me to every sport, which I think is another thing that the youth of today and the world today of specificity, might be losing. But and so I think that helped. And yeah, I just started playing volleyball late in my junior year of high school. And to be honest, look, I actually like to grind and work my butt off, but I was so tired of basketball conditioning in the spring. And I was captain on the team. I had some offers to go play basketball, and my friends were like, "Hey, why don't you try volleyball?" So I did it, and I got exposed to it in Arizona, small volleyball place. But
Yeah.
then we got to the summer leagues with all my buddies. We were playing sand, and we got there, and our setter, I was a junior, so next year we were going to be pretty good, but we had no setter. We got to this, we literally showed up to this men's league, and we're like, who's going to set?
Oh,
And
gosh.
I was like, you should do it. I'm like, so that's how I started setting. So then, a year later, I was getting recruited, or actually 6 months later, I was getting recruited. I got fortunate to go to Long Beach and get recruited in February. I was a walk-on. I had no scholarship, and
Really?
yeah, I mean,
Wow.
I
I didn't
didn't, I
know
didn't go to
that.
my first, I didn't go to my first club recruiting tournament until December, which is after the signing date of my senior year, right?
Yeah.
And so I got recruited in Long Beach in March of my senior year, and there was no money left. There's not a lot of money in men's volleyball anyway,
Sure.
but there was none left, and got recruited as a walk-on, and there was five setters at the time, but this is maybe the point of where I think my journey. So I remember, and I try to help with young players is there was five setters. I was just so happy to even be
Wow.
on the team, and I mean that honestly. So I had none of those things that get in the way, particularly at the elite athlete, a national team. You think like
Yeah.
there's pressure, there's pointing fingers or blaming coaches or whatever. If I'm not starting, if I'm not on the roster, that's couple $100,000 hit to my professional year. And so I didn't have any of that. I was happy to be there, and so I was really able to play free and to play with no expectations.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess within 4 months in the fall, I was the only setter left at Long Beach.
Oh
It was
my God.
crazy. And that's everyone talks about timing in business, this
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I don't know if that was timing, but there's luck involved in everyone's journey. And
Yeah.
those guys all just quit. And I didn't have anything. I mean, I had something to do with it maybe because I was playing well, but
Sure.
yeah. And so I was a freshman who had been setting, and Long Beach State was one of the top five programs in the country. They couldn't pull me because we didn't have another setter. So I got to suck. David
Yeah.
Lee, who's in my wedding, he's one of my very best friends and maybe the best middle blocker of his generation and maybe the
Amazing.
best middle blocker ever in the United States. And he was a junior, and he used to tell me in the middle of matches, dude, you suck, man. Like, you see this team
Sounds
around
about
you.
right.
So we had three Olympians on that team. I was never a players Olympian, but we had three other Olympians on that team. And
Jeez.
he's like, do you see that? Like in the middle of the game, do you see who you are? Like you're blowing it, dude. And so, and he was right. But I was fortunate to be able to go through those bumps, and so then I was fortunate to have a good career at Long Beach. Started playing with the national teams in the summer, and then didn't really want to coach. I didn't have that idea, but I was starting to coach club, and I liked it, and started modeling. I just imitated. I think when
Yeah.
you're young, and that goes to my coach philosophy now, we got to watch the best players in the world, imitate them first because
Mm-hmm.
there's such a skill gap that you have to try to imitate to see how it goes. So I was imitating coaches. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Ray with Jamie Foxx, but it's a great movie about he didn't find his
Oh, I haven't.
niche or his voice or his who he was as a
Yeah.
musician because he was imitating all the greats for so long
Yeah.
people were calling him out for it. And then all of a sudden, through all of those imitations, he was parsing things from all of them. And I think one of our questions we'll talk about where creativity or progression comes from. But I did that as a coach for a long time. And then finally, I just remember this moment, I forget at some point, where I was like, oh, I know who I am as a coach and what I want to be as a coach, which is different than other coaches.
Yeah.
But it took me forever because I didn't know what that was. I had to imitate other coaches and
Yeah.
trial and error. And so did all of that, and then had to retire early. I'd still be playing. I'm 40.
I believe it.
You know me. I would never have quit
I believe
playing
it.
until I had to. But Aaron Brock and Alan Knight walked in and said, "You're done.
Yeah.
You've had 8 surgeries. You're done." I was like, "No, I'm not. I got it."
Yeah.
And so I started coaching, and have just been another lucky thing. I mean, I've played under or coached all of the national team coaches
So
for the
cool.
last 8 Olympics, 4 quads, men and women, and coached with them, and then obviously with John Cook, who's one of the greatest of all time. So
Yeah.
I've just been fortunate to learn from all of them, and been fortunate that all of them gave me a lot more freedom than I think I either deserved or that is normal to make a lot of mistakes and
Yeah.
have all these crazy ideas that they just let me do and learn from. And I think that's extremely rare in the
Yeah.
coaching world, that as an assistant, your head coach gives you as much freedom as all of them gave me. John Speraw, Hugh McCutcheon, Alan Knight, John Cook. And so I'm fortunate to have those experiences. And now I'm here and had a number of head coaching roles. And so I guess that's how I got to where I'm at now.
If anyone knows Tyler, you're an amazing chef. You're an amazing skier. You love golf. Like, I think this is probably why we get along, because when you go, you're like, whoa, what's the unlock? Like, how great could we make this? Why are we just being average around here? And I think part of why those coaches probably let you have freedom is because you are so committed to the craft of coaching. And I love hearing you talk about it. But I want to hear you talk about what drives you to really push the boundaries as a coach, because it's, you want to stay true to like the best practices and what you've learned, but if we're not progressing or trying, we'll never really know or find our own voice. So how do you think about that as a coach?
There's a couple books and smart people that I've learned from in this. Josh Waitzkin, as we were talking about for the podcast. Adam Grant in the book Originals. I think there's a misnomer about what creativity. You're talking progression, creativity, right?
Yeah.
Pushing boundaries is usually attributed to creativity. Steve Jobs or Elon, like whatever. And I think the science behind creativity is pretty sound now. That there's very few original thoughts through human history. And so when someone does something that's new or progressive, which is what you're asking, it's not you woke up and you had this crazy idea. Occasionally it is, occasionally. But that only comes from just an immense foundation of knowledge and an immense amount of study through broad topics. Or David Epstein's book Range is my favorite, maybe my favorite book. And it talks about how all of these peripheral or broad learning in different areas, you chunk those things, you take those, they can apply to whatever specific thing you're working on. And that's where creativity to me comes from, or progressive thoughts come from. You said best practices. So if you know the best practice, let's just stick to volleyball. I hate to stick to volleyball because I think it's about life, learning and cooking or anything, or parenting.
Totally.
But if you're studying as hard as you can the best practices in lots of areas, let's just say volleyball, systems, skill acquisition of individual skills, psychological, sports psych type ideas, physics, geometry, strength conditioning principles. If you're trying to, if you're doing your best, and I'm not an expert, but I do my best to try to study all of those fields as much as possible. And so then when you have this thing that people think I'm out of the box, I think I'm in the box.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm in the box. Like if you talk about throws or joust or tight to the net. That's way out of the box in women's juniors volleyball because their boxes set the ball off the net, don't train because
Right.
it's not safe or they don't think it's effective. But to me, the box is the top international game. So if you were a quarterback coach and you were teaching the commonalities between Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, whoever, John, go through the list of the greatest quarterbacks, and you were teaching all that in football, they'd be like, "Oh, you're in the box." But I
Right.
think in volleyball, we do need to make a movement of we need to be watching the best in the game.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods changed golf, and everybody started studying his swing, and now we have hundreds or thousands of players that have all learned from that.
Yeah.
Well, were they outside of the box? Because Tiger was new in what he did with his swing and how he played the game. So if you're just coaching, all the coaches that taught what Tiger taught have now created a world of what Tiger did, and so they were out of the box maybe at the time, but they're in the box as everybody
Yeah.
catches up.
Yeah.
So I think I'm in the box. I think you're going to teach setting from strength conditioning principles, ground reaction force, biomechanical efficiencies, systematic things like watching Wolos or Maroof or Tony Udy or
Yeah.
whoever to check it. Name the Jordan, Poulter, Mike
Yeah.
Chris, whatever. Like name it. But just because 95% of the country isn't coaching that, they're coaching things that were working. I think later, I sound outside the box, but I'm like, well,
Totally.
isn't that the box? Like,
Yeah. Like,
it
why are
would
we
be the
not?
box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be the box in all these other sports, but it's not on ESPN. Well, Love is going to be
Hey,
on
that's right. I was gonna say,
ESPN.
I do think we will see a shift in this, and
Right.
you're spot on. Yeah.
So to me, I don't think it's progressive what I teach.
Right.
I think it just needs to catch up. And I'm not saying that everyone else catch up to me. I'm just saying like as one of my passions is to try to share and catch anyone that'll listen of like yeah, but like with the U.S. Beach National Team when I was the head coach director of coaching, we started doing these studies and bringing in. We did the first one was a blocking study, and Phil Dahlhauser came. He's the greatest
Yeah.
blocker of all time.
Yeah.
And we're talking about these things that are not being taught normally on the beach. But when you can do a 2-hour chalk talk and show video and show this study of what they're actually doing, it's like bringing people into the box or whatever. And
Yeah.
so that's a passion of mine because if we do that, we progress the sport. And if we progress the sport, people have a faster learning curve. They learn things sooner. So they have a better opportunity to go play college and then to go play internationally.
Yeah.
And that's a passion of mine to share that so that not share my stuff, but share what's going on so that we can
Right.
all learn faster. And if we learn faster, everybody has a better opportunity. Coaches, players, sports psychs,
Yeah.
leaders.
If you see someone on the world stage, international, top level, doing something unique, are you trying it right away? Are you going to study it a little more? Because there are outliers, the LeBron James, or they'd be like, if I tried to set like Jordan Poulter as a young kid, like she's obviously very different physically than I was. So how do you think about like, we're just going to try anything we see versus, with some intention behind this? How would you teach someone that wants to kind of do this?
I think the first thing to say is that's a very dangerous and risky path to try anything we see.
Yeah.
We call it like an outlier principle or expert fallacy. And I think that I love the intent of coaches that see something like that and the braveness to want to do it. But Lloyd Ball did things, a good friend of mine. His dad was my first USA coach. Love Arnie. Shout out to Arnie. And a shout out to Lloyd. I mean, I think
yeah, he's
Lloyd
a
is,
great
I mean,
guy.
but he was doing things that are outliers. He was, and there's all kinds of those. China's best player on the women's side, the outside,
Is it Zhu?
Zhu.
Yeah.
She takes a step close and hits, like, I mean, she takes this little mini approach. I mean, you do that with a undersized outside hitter against Wisconsin, who we play tonight.
Let's go.
That's not going to go well.
Right.
And so you have to look at, I mean, I use the football analogy of
Yeah.
quarterback. So I think we ought to be very responsible and careful to see an outlier and table it and put it in the out, like, wow, this person's good. They did it like this.
Right.
But these other 15 players, men and women, I also go to beach because I've been fortunate to do Olympic level on both. You go to beach, and when you can find commonalities in all of those, you can recognize the outlier. And I think that's that. So I encourage and I admire the braveness for coaches to see something like that and then want to do it, like a Zhu or a lawyer, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like you got to do the work and you got to obsess and put all the time in to study it. And then when you see a commonality of, let's say, Rafa, Rolos, Nutsara, Maruf, Toniuti, DeCecco, of a position and use the ground and how they do that. Okay, that's step one. Then you got to go to strength and conditioning coaches and the physics behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're setting a ball that has gravity pulling it down, and you're putting force into it, and you have to use the ground because if you were wading water in a pool, you have to use all at the end of the chain. You don't have any ground base of support. So
Right.
I know that's very intellectual, but if you study all those things, you have lots of evidence or best practices in all of these different fields to support why they have the same posture and their head's tilted back and their chest is underneath and they're using the ground up. And golf talks about using ground force. I mean, so you use all these things to then allow you to say, this is maybe a best practice, and we start from there.
Right.
And there's a lot of great setters that don't use the ground, or there's a few great setters that don't use the ground all that well, that have just 1 in a million touch. And so the art of
Similar to
coaching,
my career, just that 1 in a million touch. No, I'm joking for all the people
you're a
listening.
great touch. Come on. So that's where I think that we have to do the obsessive work to try to, time of attention and time of skill acquisition focus is so finite, and you only have a certain amount of time. In a college game, you have even less because of care hours, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
so
wild.
if you're taking risks on the outlier or whatever, over time, I think it's dangerous, and I think that we need to do the work.
I love that. Well said by you. One of the questions we get asked a lot from our coaches and when I do clinics or whatever is, how do we motivate athletes? And you could take this so many different directions. I also think the athlete today is facing challenges we didn't when we were competing. So how do you think about motivation?
So this is also an overlap, which all this stuff will be, of leadership. I think most people that are watching the leadership evolution is, for a very, very long time, leadership was discipline and authority. Maybe misconstrued as that, but that was what people thought of leaders, right? And I think we all know now that it's emotional intelligence or emotional empathy and actually information. When every person, has a phone and they can, is that right? Google it, and 5 seconds later can fact check you. Your information, which is kind of what we just talked about, the work to have the information, but the emotional empathy. So in terms of motivation, it comes from leadership, obviously, and culture. But I've changed over the years through studying all this, and Brene Brown, and we could go down the list of all the people. But so motivation to me used to be when I first started coaching, and I had great coaches that were great at this. Derek Lucero, Greg Vinovich, a lot of people, but Greg Vinovich is a great mutual friend of ours. We've taken
Oh, yes. Vern. Shout out, Vern. We got to get back on the books for a ski trip this year.
That's right. The most important person on Mount Everest for a decade. If you don't know how to
Oh
motivate
my gosh, that guy.
in one of the most wizardry ways, then you don't get that. But it used to be, how can you get people to have a common vision to run through a wall for a purpose, right?
Yes.
And that is valuable. And I still use some of those things, but I want them to run through a wall for their own personal growth and their own personal impact that they can have on the team or that they can have during their playing when we have them, but more importantly, so they can have it with their community, with their family. So learning the life lessons. So to me, the motivation core is twofold. And it takes a long time for people that I start saying this to around me, my staff or my players, to understand joy. And there's a great Mia Hamm quote. Mia is maybe one of the greatest soccer players ever, the
Change the
leading,
game, yeah.
I still think, for the U.S. women's soccer team. She used to have the most caps. I think Megan Rapinoe passed her, but she has a great quote, which is behind all the hours on the field, the coaches that pushed you, the blood, sweat, and tears, was a little girl who fell in love with the game and never looked back. I get emotional.
Yeah, it gave me chills.
Um, Play for her. So we all forget when we get to my wife has a lot to do with this, and April and Alex, who I coached, and Carrie, and all the guys I coached too. But you forget it turns into a business at some
Yeah,
points, and it turns into these other things when you get older and better and all that,
yeah,
and the margins get thinner. You forget that you were 12 years old and you didn't do it because, oh my God, most people didn't do it because I'm gonna be the best player in the world. They did it
yeah,
because, oh dude, this is fun. I love this. I love going to the gym and playing with my friends. And so the motivation for me is to try to keep hitting that. Don't forget
mhm,
that while we got a big match tonight against Wisconsin. And all of the players that I coached tonight started because they loved it. And they were a little girl. And one of the cool things happened at SC, I'm not trying to plug SC, but is our biggest fan base right now is young girls.
really?
We're getting 30-40% of the crowd. Nebraska's got the best crowd
Oh
ever,
yeah,
but like 85% of it is older
right.
people or people middle age. But we have 40% that are young women, young girls,
That's
and
so cool.
so they're getting to see, and I know that's a big part of love volleyball
Yeah,
too, is
totally.
that inspiration of that fan base and being role models. So, but it's like, so I remind this sometimes. I'm like, dude, when you're signing those autographs after and you're seeing that, I'm like, they're where you were when you fell in love with this game. So play and be an example of that love on the court. And it's not like butterflies and rainbows and all this BS
Yeah,
that people associate with joy. Joy is coming out of the other side of failure, coming out of the other side
yes,
of hard with an internal motivation or an internal autonomy that you did this, you battled through with your
yeah,
teammates and yourself. That's joy. That's joy in parenting and in marriage
mm-hmm,
and in life. And so if you can find a way to use this emotional journey we're on of wanting to win and get better and failure sucks and
yeah,
I'm so frustrated. If you can connect that with they're going to be a better human on the other side of it, they're going to be better to their people around them. And that's not easy to do because the current structure of sports and volleyball is results oriented. And if you
yeah,
suck,
man.
go do another 1,000 reps. And they get this psyche and their identity is attached to who they are as a volleyball player.
Yeah,
That's bullshit.
it's tough. Yeah,
So if you can, so that's the first motivation there is, can we find the joy and can we relate it to the values that you're going to carry on through this tough journey as a college athlete or an
yeah.
Olympic athlete to have an impact with the people around you.
Yeah, there's such a tension there of like one kind of society in general and the results and like all of these like hard things. But you're totally right. And the joy piece, I'm thinking of your wife, Kristen Hildebrandt, played at Stanford, and we were the same class on the national team. So we have lived a lot of moments together. And one of the cheeky things we say now, I've told this story actually on a previous episode about being in Vegas, and we lost, we would lose the hand and we'd look at each other and be like, what an honor to be in the arena. Here we go. Like, we're kind of like laughing through the like, oh shit, we just lost some money there. But it is what like life's all about. The joy is like being in these shared experiences with people that you care about and helping each other stay connected to what you value.
Yeah.
And then getting your ass kicked and being like, oh, maybe I didn't do that right. Or maybe that's not my value. Here we go. And like the tension and challenge of that as you grow and evolve and become yourself. So I think you said that really well.
Funny story about that, Blackjack. My wife, she's
the best.
the best. And one of my favorite things about her is like, there's some stuff that she just never learned growing up, or she did. And gambling certainly is one of them. And so we're early in our dating, and we're driving to Lake Havasu or something to meet her family. So it's a long drive, right through Vegas. And I'm like, oh, we're stopping. She's like, what? I'm like, oh, we're going to go play a couple of hands for 20 minutes and get out of here. She's like, hands of what? And she didn't know how to play blackjack. She didn't even know the rules. So I'm teaching her on the drive how to play blackjack. And she's never gambled. And we stop in $20. It's like she's like $20. That's it. We're both broke, obviously.
Yeah.
And this is my wife. She does these things all the time. She puts her $20 down. I put my $20 down. She gets an 11. So, and dealer's showing like 6. But regardless, if you've ever seen Swingers, the great comedy with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau, always double on 11, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, no way I'm putting more. And I'm like, you have to. So I put the 20 down.
Yeah.
Of course, she gets a 10, wins, walks away, $80, and she still owes me the 40.
That's amazing. That sounds about like Kristen.
Yeah. And so it's funny you talked about now she loves blackjack, and you get.
It's amazing. Well, I don't think we did that well this time, but we had a lot of fun as we do.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So good. Okay, so this feeling of joy, right? And staying connected to kind of it's like having perspective. Can you share a time when you've been in it with an athlete and maybe tried like an unconventional way to motivate or conversation? These are hard to think of sometimes, but does anything come to mind?
I think one of the things that we all need to try to do as leaders or coaches is understand that if you wait till that moment, you're unprepared. And not that you're unprepared, but they're unprepared maybe to hear what your message is. So front loading all of this is the best way. And everyone talks about culture, but if your culture starts from day one and your culture is intertwined in every single thing you're doing, from on the court, off the court, even in like fun, just hang out conversations. The players I've coached, sometimes they start rolling their eyes, because you start making these things cliches. But then that moment, not only it's easier, it's not about being easy, but that moment where you're having that sit down in the office, and you got to get into it. And you can then go to things that they've heard before that you've tried to sell as a salesman for them to believe. And it's not about arms away from your platform or get your feet to the ball setting. Like that stuff, but it's more about this connection to a deeper meaning of values that are going to help you in life, that are going to make you have a bigger impact, and joy through struggle and all these things. Then you can relate back to all those things. So you're struggling because you had a really bad match hitting and you feel like you're letting the team down, and you want to revert back to something comfortable versus continue to be brave and understand that like keep going, and there's going to be success, and that success will be better than if I give you just a quick answer that might make you feel better right now. Yeah. Well, that's what we talk about every day, all the time, and so they can relate to that, and so the leadership part of that, or the vision part of that, or the motivation part of that, it's not about it being easier on me or us as coaches. It's about setting them up for success. So it's not just a stop valve band-aid in that moment.
Yeah.
And then tell them, look, you might not hit better tonight in this match.
Yeah.
And that's actually maybe going to be better. But you need to be brave, and you need to know that we believe in you and we support you. And we do a thing called snaps,
Oh yeah.
and we snap sometimes through big successes of our system or what we're working on, or a lot of times. But I think a lot of teams get in situations where, yes, there's a system and we're coaching, but there's this one player, this other player who are struggling. But the whole team doesn't know what we're all working on with them. And
Oh
and
yeah.
and, and when you're always teaching through a learning and you're trying to produce these visions of how to be better or progressive in these things, when someone tries to throw a ball that's tight but they're not comfortable with you and they throw it in the middle of the net, we snap that up because
Yeah.
that's a failure that we're all working on, and we all know that everybody's on a different journey with it. Right now, Ali Battenhorst is great at it, and a couple players are still kind of learning it.
Yeah.
So we snap it because if you're trying to work on that as an individual, and the coaches are, and you throw it in the net, but the rest of your team's like, "Why the hell did you just throw that in the net, dude?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they
Totally.
don't have support of their teammates or their staff, or our managers are snapping. And
That's so
so
good. It is really, it's so simple and it's so powerful.
yeah. So when you
Yeah.
feel supported in your failures with the
Yeah.
group you're with, you're more brave to keep trying it, and so a long way to end, but so then when you're in the meeting with your player, you're able to
Yeah.
continue to touch on that.
Totally.
Like, hey, we got you.
Yeah.
We got you. No one's worried about you failing right now, because you're being brave. Now, if they revert and start going back, then you have to hold them accountable to, like, hey, I know it's hard. I know your
Yeah.
amygdala wants you to go to flight right now.
Yeah.
We all do that. I
Oh.
want you to. I want
Yeah.
you to feel better right now. I can help you. But we have to have the big picture in mind, and so. But the more you do that, the more it becomes natural. Brene Brown, my hero, the leader of vulnerability leadership. I mean, she does a lot of things, but she's kind of, if Carol Dweck is the leader of growth mindset, she was the only one, but she was the kind of the one that put on the map. Well, Brene put vulnerability, leadership through vulnerability on the map. We're doing vulnerability with our team right now quite a bit.
Really?
There's so many people like freaking out. All the players did it. We do 2 players a week, and the players are done. And then they're like, nope, we're going to keep going. You coaches have to do it. Share your story. And a lot of our coaches are like, and dude,
Totally.
I'm not separating myself from them, but whatever it was when that TED Talk, that's like the 5th biggest TED Talk ever that Brene came out with,
Yeah.
started to do it. And I remember my nervousness through vulnerability initially, but I just can't remember a time I wasn't trying to do that. Now it's been
Yeah.
years. So I'm like, dude, this is the magic, dude. Like, I can't wait to share,
Yeah.
how much I suck and all the things that I've failed at and all that,
Yeah.
because it becomes part of who you are. So you can be authentic, and it's awesome that our coaches are doing, our players did
That's
it.
amazing.
We're kind of
What do you guys, is it I don't know if you're open to sharing, but is it pretty descriptive of what you're asking them to share, or is it just share something that's vulnerable?
completely open book. Anything they want.
Really?
Yeah. 2 players share. Everyone's crying. The tissue box is going
Oh yeah.
around. Our sports psych, Robin Schofield's amazing, and she kind of coached up everyone of how to respond. So someone has
Yeah.
they share something about some childhood stuff that was really difficult and made them who they are. And I mean, these are really emotional, powerful things. And some people
Yeah.
have been through some really tough things growing up, and
Yeah.
and so, if you don't coach up the player, because then we respond, whoever wants to respond.
Yeah.
And if you go like, "Oh, I totally understand what you're going through," da, 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 like,
Right.
no, you don't. Like,
Right.
well, some coaching of how, hey, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
although I can't understand what you went through, I'm here for
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
I'm an ear for you and a heart for you to listen to. I've had a similar experience, and so I trust that that it was hard for you to share that because so
Yeah.
so it's been
God,
so
what great
powerful.
training for them. Because it's hard
Yes.
to hold space if you've never done that, like to know or to not be in your experience of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and almost every player has kind of started like, I've never shared all this in a group. Like, how powerful is that? I
That's
mean,
so cool.
so I
Wow.
mean, we need to keep sharing that message. I think because
Yeah.
it used to be you got to be tough
Yeah.
and discipline and authority and
Keep pushing it deep, deep down
yeah,
and
yeah.
override. So if you and I, hypothetically speaking, were coaching a team together and we took over the women's national team job that's open currently, or if we're coaching 14-year-old club athletes, along with bravery, going for it, being open to learning, we're going to challenge them and say, hey, your brain's wired to not do that. We're going to celebrate when you do. We're probably going to bring in some vulnerability. What else would you say are like the big rocks of the culture you would want to create?
For like both or the differences or
Let's go. Let's do both because I am curious what's the same. I'm curious what's the difference. I think it's really fun talking to you because you've coached 4 quads. Is that what it?
three quads.
3 quads,
Yeah,
4 Olympics. Okay,
yeah.
and you've also coached obviously in college at a lot of levels, and you've coached club. So I'm curious your perspective on that.
I have a different opinion than just about anybody, and people. Yeah, this is a hard one for me to try to express, but I got asked in 17 when we won the national championship in Nebraska. There was like an article by Lee Feinswag and Volleyball Mag, and
Shout out Lee. He's the
yeah,
best from Volleyball Magazine.
yeah, he's
Also working
great.
at League One Volleyball. He's the
Oh
best.
yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Yeah, Lee's great, and
Yeah.
sat me down, right before the finals, actually, after we won the semis, and we did an article. And he went because that was my first year coaching collegiate women. I'd coached women in club and on beach, but my first year in college women. So kind of a lot of it was like, what difference from the men? You're
Yeah.
meant da da da, and what's the difference? And I'm just like, I just don't think there is a difference. I mean, of course, there's general differences and
Right.
generalizations, but we're Homo sapiens, or humans first.
Yeah.
We're individuals next. We're athletes, and somewhere down the line, we're male and female, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so I think you want to know some general differences that tend to be differences between men and women in that sense. But I just don't understand why we want to make it so different. I mean, are
Yeah.
we just trying to motivate people to believe in something bigger than themselves and be a part of something that can be impactful for them in their life
Yeah.
and have a joy in the journey? That's all repetitive what I've said, but like, why is that different from
Yeah.
anyone,
It's the human
from men's
experience.
or women's? It
Yeah.
certainly wasn't different when I was coaching April and Alex and all the women on the national team at beachside, or coaching Jake and Taylor and Phil and Nick and all them on the men's side. There's no difference in how I did it. Zero, actually. And it was about April and Alex or Sarah, who they are and how to help them, and Phil and them. That's an indirect way to say the difference in 14-year-olds or Olympians. I mean, yes, there's a knowledge base of the sport and a knowledge base of like worldly things and things like that, but scaling, we're talking about scaling in that sense, right? I just don't scale down ever. Okay, we're not going to be running
Love
a
that.
cross route big for 14-year-old girls.
Sure.
Like, you need to
Progress
have some
as yeah.
foundational stuff, but we are going to show them on video the cross route big or a drift and a pop or throws and things like this. But that's the whole learn. There's the comfort circle,
Oh
and then
yeah.
there's the learning. Then right out of that's the learning zone. Then there's the chaos zone. And if you're trying to teach a 14-year-old girl or guy what Ingapeth does on a out of system tight ball, that's chaos for them. They can't get there yet.
Right.
So yeah, there's some scaling and training, but you have to be showing them that stuff so they can dream big and they can see it. So they're getting those things, and maybe they try it without you even asking one time. And you start showing them all that, and you start progressing them as fast as you can. But from a vulnerability leadership, if you and I were coaching, I would first ask you, because I think you are ahead of anyone I know on all of this. I would hope that I'm your assistant in that sense. So
Oh,
that
yeah, right.
you lead. But it would be more important in some ways for the 14-year-old team, which I know with your guys' camps that you and Tama and Peo and Kristen did, which was really cool. I forget what was
The
your
Give
guys'
It Back Foundation. Yeah, that was
so
fun. So cool.
awesome.
So cool.
How you guys had this holistic camp. Everyone just wants to make money and teach them volleyball skills and put them through like 8,000 setting reps, which is dumb. And you guys had this really cool holistic camp. I don't remember all the details of things, but
Yeah, we did
what,
the.
share some of that, how you did that.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that for a while, but we started working with Michael Gervais as a team. And like a lot of the stuff you're saying, the vulnerability, like coming off the London quad where our culture was tough and we didn't know how to manage all the gnarly personalities that were beautiful, but also really challenging. So we started working with Mike. We were being more vulnerable, kind of this like, oh, you don't just have to be in this override old school mentality, even on the world stage. And then we won world championships. And we were like, Chris was there, I was there. And Tama and I were like, man, we should pass this along if we can. So we started doing camps in the hometowns of girls on the national team. And whoever's hometown it was got to pick where all the money went to, and 100% was given to charity. So it was just this like massive feel good event. And the coolest part for me was just throwing this idea out to my teammates. Tom and I did. And Tama Miyashiro played at Washington, Olympian, coached on the national team, and now she's with League One volleyball. But we threw it out. We're like, guys, would you be in? And within 10 minutes, the whole team wrote back, I'm down. I would do that for free. And we were like, that's cool. And then we had this meeting, and it was like Krista Harmato, who's now Dietzen, Kristen, Peo, like Megan Hodge, all these big name athletes was like, what would you want to teach your 14-year-old self? And like, no one's telling us what to do. Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cool. And each person kind of took their own passion and were like, hey, you run this session. We'll stop the whole camp and we'll do this. And it was really fun to see like that level of humanness, I guess, and for them to feel empowered to get to share. And it's pretty cool. I wish obviously we're not doing that anymore, but it was a fun run for, I think, like 5 years there.
You got some cool volcano stuff.
That's right.
Volcano trips when you guys have
We did five mini clinics in Hawaii. We went to 5 different islands, and it was awesome. Yeah, a very fun 2 weeks.
I had a lot of FOMO. Kristen was sending me videos, but
yeah,
you did like a helicopter ride over a volcano. It was cool.
Yeah, we did a lot. It was fun.
So that would be, shockingly we're aligned on this, but so I think the most, I don't even want to say difficult, because it's not difficult for winning or losing or changing people when they get to college, girls when they get to college, women when they get to college, but it hurts my heart, that you have to undo all this scar tissue. And listen, shout out to all the club coaches out there and club programs. I mean, they're giving themselves. Almost all of them have other jobs. I mean,
yes,
it's such
job.
a servant leader thing, but there is a lot of things that we can get better at in terms of that leadership and the responsibility they have during these development years. And so I think that we would want to put at the forefront of those what you guys did that camp and your younger self, the forefront of all of these things we've talked about, I guess, so far in this podcast. Like, how do we teach them that their identity out of the gate will never be who they are as a volleyball player? It's just not the case.
Woo, gave me chills. Oh my gosh.
And how do we start with that and say everything we do is going to be to make sure that you don't ever feel that way? And then when they get in front of coaches or social media, or they start to get recruited and they want to, or parents, this helicopter parenting generation isn't helping.
Yeah, that's tough.
To not tell everyone else they're wrong for doing that to them, but to almost use it as okay, I'm not going to disrespect all of this. I'm going to be strong enough to be an example. You could be a leader at 15 of like, I hear this, I'm gonna keep working my thing, but I'm gonna keep being me and growing as a human, and I'm gonna let volleyball be what I do, not who I am. And so you could kind of give them the, hey, we get better when we get challenged, and we can learn from it. So I think that would be the core first thing, and then I think that failure, which kind of overlaps that, but how do we teach them that failure is the best thing? And Michael Jordan's great, whatever quote or thing snippet that he has of, I missed 2,000 something shots. I was trusted with a game winner 26 times and failed. Blah 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 blah. He talks all his failures. He goes, and I succeed because I failed. So Kobe Bryant, I think, is the best ever at teaching all this stuff in terms of what we have from one of the greatest athletes. But anyway, so how do we put all those things into them when they're really, really young? And so start there, and then on the flip side, you're doing, because they're sponges at that point. I mean, they're gonna soak it up. So then you almost front load it.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side with the national team, like if we were the national team staff, which would be really fun, by the way. For the national team staff, both of us have experience at that level, coaching it, playing it, and we would be able to understand they forgot about that younger self, which we've talked about, and how do we continue to remind them of those values, and how do we get the whole team to. It's just so hard at the national team level so on the indoor side, it's making rosters so they can obviously be on the national team, which is their dream, but also so they can get pro contracts. I mean, we're talking about high stakes jobs and food on the plate and things like that. And our food on the table, roof over the head, that's not a joke. And then on the beach side, the four national teams, men and women, they're competing against each other for food on the table and insurance and these things. And so how do you get the still qualities of leadership and culture and motivation so that there'd be the challenge on that side, but I think that could be almost more worthy. And I know that Sue did a great job with this, finding some help and support with Karch's staff and them to do that. And Kimmy's she coached with me at Long Beach. Kim Hill.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she shared with me so much of their journey with that. And I think that it gets missed at that level because the stakes are so high. And then you got the LA games. We want to win, right? But how do we authentically, through passion, really, really, really stick to those messages and those values, disciplined in our messaging and our values, and acting it authentically as leaders every day to show them that if we do this, we're going to have a better chance of winning in LA. Yeah. And then you get all of the collateral benefits of oh yeah, we're going to be better people too. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When I'm a mom someday or a spouse, or whatever I do, I'm going to be better at that. Because I don't care what you deal with as losing a game or not playing well. It ain't harder than having a 3-week-old, which shout out to you. And I wanted to find a way and I didn't know how, but I got it right here. Shout out to you. But that moment, particularly as a mom, it's hard as a dad too, but if you're breastfeeding, it's just harder. You're in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You're sleep deprived. You love this new thing or human more than anything in the world, and it is screaming, and you can't help it. You don't know how to do it.
Help it.
And no one prepares you for it. And you think losing a game is hard? Trust me, that is going to be emotionally and skill set wise harder than anything you've ever done.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt more. Even though this hurts as an athlete, it's going to hurt more. And if you're not a mom, maybe it's a sibling or someone, whatever. But come on, family and human interaction and being a parent, we're playing a freaking game, man. It's not life. And so how do we get them to believe in that? And the shout out is I have two kids, Rhett and Lennon. Rhett's birthday was yesterday.
Oh,
He's
that's right. He's
7.
7. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're so cute. I love
Funny,
those little
it's
nuggets.
funny you might, yeah. Courtney probably has that all over her calendar. She definitely has it in her receipts and her credit cards statements because there's one person that's been there to be who showed up for my wife and me when both my kids were born. Rhett was born right before we won the national championship, a couple weeks, and so I was a good dad, I promise, and I was there, but I couldn't be there because we were trying to make a national championship run. So Courtney came for 10 days or two
Yeah.
weeks,
Yeah.
and I was just there for my wife, which is amazing. And then I went to the Olympics in Tokyo 2 days after Lennon was born. I was gone for a month, and Courtney came out. So thank you for that, Courtney, and
So
Kristen was
honor of a lifetime to get to be in that.
yeah, and so, but that's my point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Courtney, you are known as many things. Again, I'm going to vote. I'm going to write in ballot you for the president every election moving forward. But there's not a single person that you've played with or been around that don't know this about you and how good of a teammate you were. So, the question is, did you learn that through sports or your family? I know your family a little bit.
Yeah.
Your brother Trevor went into
Yeah. He
one of
was
the
on.
greatest one of the greatest team
Yeah.
firsts, right?
Oh yeah.
He
Navy
was a
SEALs
Navy
set the
SEAL,
standard. Yeah.
commander of a SEAL Team 6. Like one of the greatest team environments ever. You've been in some of the greatest team environments ever. I mean, how did that all come about for you to know? Because you have those values of like human connection and
Yeah.
relationship and be there first, be a teammate. So you were a teammate to me, and I'm grateful for that. But how did that happen
Yeah.
with you?
Well, thank you. That means a lot. It's funny because I think the moment you're referring to, and then I'll get to this question, is there was one night in particular when I was there. You were there when Lennon was born, and then you left because obviously you were coaching the Olympics. Congrats on helping the team win a gold. Let's go. So it was like super fun because we're in it with the kids, and I'm trying to help and getting coached. Shout out Brett for yelling at me and be like, "No, you stay up in the middle of the night. I don't care if Kristen says she's fine." And so there's one night where we couldn't get Lennon to stop crying, and it's like the whole thing,
What
4
one
a.m.
night? One
Yeah,
night?
well, one of the nights. And I, we're just in it. Kristen's like waking up, feeding her, and then I'm like trying to step in and take her, the whole thing. And after like 19 rounds of this, we've got like our hoodies up. I'm like on the ball, and we like put her down, and she stops, and we're like, and then and we just start like crying. We're both just like hysterically. I don't know if we were laughing or crying. And I was like, Kristen, we've been to the Grand Prix. Like, we got this shit. Like, and it was this beautiful moment because she and I have shared so many hard moments in sports and emotionally drained, physically drained, mentally drained, or pissed. And like, to me, it's one of my favorite moments of my life, actually.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I was lucky to just grow up around sports, and like a lot of the stuff that you are pointing to of like finding the joy, I think my parents taught us. I mean, they just loved the simple, like, oh, we're going to Little League and it's sunny in Seattle. How fun. And we get to go have a blizzard after the game. Like, they just loved kind of the whole environment around sports. I think I wasn't always the best one. So they emphasized very early, be a great teammate. And I would only get blizzards if I took a charge or had more assists than points or something like that. So they were fostering this like, hey, we're great teammates here. And then I think something in like the military background was just like, I didn't grow up when my dad was in the service, but both my grandparents were, my dad, my cousins were all Marines. And then of course, Trevor went into it. But it was just kind of this family value of like, it's not really about you.
Yeah.
And to get to see my family believe in something bigger than them and the honor of fighting for that, I think is where I feel really lucky.
Yeah. So you think about this, right? You and I are talking really in some similar like thought
Yeah.
lines here, right? And whatever, right? in youth basketball, I don't know, 8 years. Yeah, I'd score like 40 points, like,
Did you really?
I don't, you know what I mean? Like it was one of those
Yeah.
where it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
if I
yeah, yeah.
wanted to score, I could score anytime I wanted, I mean, I
Yes.
wasn't thinking that way back then, but
Sure.
whatever. I was fortunate to have some accelerant
Yeah.
abilities, and I think a lot of it was my dad teaching me from I was young.
Yeah.
But same thing. It wasn't good job, this and that. Always supportive. My dad wasn't a browbeater of me,
Right.
but it was like, hey, dude, you could have gone with your left hand there, and you crossed over and went to your right. So it was about the process.
Yeah.
Like I made the layup, but it's like you're on the left side. You could have gone on the left because we were working. So he was trying to branch because that's one.
Right.
But what you were talking about, it was like you should have. You need to pass the ball more. Nobody cares that you're the best player.
Yes.
You need to get other people involved. You need to be a teammate. And so we got this, right? We got this at a young age, and there's more to all of that. But same thing, the family orientation around sports and all that, right? And being a good teammate. And my dad was always harder on me. He was my coach, than everyone else. And I got all frustrated, And he's like, if I'm not hard on you, then you're not going to learn how to be a great teammate because it's going to be all about you. And these things are like in my mind. So that goes to what we're talking about with the 14 teen. Like, what would we do with 14-year-olds? And maybe they had parents or environments or people around them that helped that, but it's our responsibility to try to do that for anyone that may or may not have had that. And so we have these beliefs, and you and I can kind of touch on those, but I don't even remember when those things weren't in my mind. So how can we get them into people's young athletes' mind as soon as possible?
So one of the things I would love to see, I'm going to ask you two more questions, and I knew this going in. We're going to have you back if you're willing, because I could talk to you. I want to talk to you about the state of volleyball, the Olympics in LA, all these things. So please come back. But I feel like a lot of athletes, coaches can get stuck in this like scarcity mindset. Like, oh, you've trained here, now you're leaving. This is bad. Or another club is starting. This is bad. And I get this because when you're passionate about something, you want it to be the best, and you want it, you want to include everyone that you want to be in there. But I also think it was a lesson on the national team of like, it's not that you want the other player to be worse, or I don't want China to play bad. Like, let's go. It's this shift of like, what's the word I'm not thinking of? What's the opposite of like scarcity mindset?
Ooh.
Maybe there isn't a word, but like this loving, expansive place of like, let's wish that they play the best they can. And let's wish the club across the street is amazing. And you know what? It's going to make us better. And let's be amazing too. Like, I think it would be cool if we could kind of adopt that. So I'm going to jump off my soapbox and ask you, two more questions for you, but what do you hope most for every youth athlete? And I know you've shared a lot of these things, but if you had to just answer that, if you hope they really understood this well, what would that be?
I think that the most important thing to me is to initially create a learning mindset. And I know there's cliche. Is love the most important thing in the world? I think so. But your company is love, which is really cool. But I think it is the most important thing. But love is not fixed. And I think that's something that, what's your job as a parent? Oh, it's to love your kids. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, if you don't love your kid, you're not a parent.
Right.
How do you get better at love? How does your love deepen? How do you, throughout a marriage or throughout a relationship with a friend or a family member, like, you have to really learn how to be a great learner. And these are all the things we've talked about, basically, is how to be a better learner. So to me, how do we teach them how to be great learners? And you can't be a great learner if you're not vulnerable when you make mistakes. You can't be a great learner if you don't have plan, do, review. You can't be a great learner if you don't want to be a better version of yourself from the day before. I think I butchered that quote, but right? You want to be better.
I'm tracking. Yep.
Yeah. But if you just want to be better than the person across from you,
yeah,
right?
That's it.
Which is the scarcity, right?
Yeah.
Then that's not being a great learner. And so every day, all the time, you're you have to fight hard because these are all natural tendencies. Compare yourself. Um, I fail, I suck, tell me how to be better. People aren't going to think I'm a good, volleyball player or person. So it's a big, so really being able to express to the young athletes, like this is going to be the hardest part of your journey as a volleyball player. And guess what? It's also going to be the hardest part of life, period. It's going to be the hardest part of what you do is not falling into these natural, human, organic, brain functioning traps. And so that's pretty broad, I know.
Amazing.
But
What a beautiful
how do you
answer.
teach them how to be a great learner?
Yeah.
And then the second most important thing is how to be a great teammate. And obviously there's overlap between those two things because you can't be a great teammate unless you're a great learner and learning because you're going to have conflict and you got to have conflict resolution but to find out how to teach them how to be great learners through all of those branches and butterfly effects of being a great learner and being a great teammate, I think would be the first thing. And to prepare them for what's ahead, like it's going to be hard. You're going to be in tough environments. You're going to have tough choices on what club to go to. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to balance what you think is best for you and what you think is the best thing to do to stick to commitments or to stick to people that have been great to you and be a great teammate for people that have done things for you. It's all going to be hard. But if you keep sticking to those two values as you grow, it's going to work out in the end. And it'll work out in life in the end if you keep sticking to those values.
Oh,
Whoa.
guys, just in.
Hi.
Yay, there she is. Kristen Hildebrandt. You got some airtime today. Hi, friend.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm excited to listen to what you guys chatted about.
Well,
Thanks.
we were just about to wrap up, but I'm glad you came in because we did talk about you quite a bit. So, well, to both of you, thank you. Thank you for being on, Tyler. I love you. I love the place that you come from, and this is so cool to hear you talk about this stuff. And I hope that we get to do it again because there's a lot more I would love to dive in. But you guys are both making everybody around you better, and we're grateful for you. So I hope you kick ass tonight in your game. We'll be cheering you on. And I love you and thank you.
Well, we love you too. I love what you do. I love what Love does. And Courtney for president.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in to Beyond the Court. And thanks to our guest, Tyler Hildebrandt, for joining us today. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. And to learn more about League One Volleyball, follow us on Instagram at LOVB. And in the meantime, keep working hard, having fun, and go on and spread the love today. All right. We'll see you next time.